Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald, and we are here with the Big 12 Insiders back again. Appreciate you guys being in here. Took a little bit of a hiatus. I wasn't feeling good. Fitz wasn't feeling good. Just needed a little break just to recover. But we've recovered, and here we are. So got some good stuff, man. We're talking about today. Look, the college football news, I guess just college sports in general. Look, they met the commissioners. They had their big commissioners meeting in Orlando. The NCAA president basically has thrown his hands up and just says, we need help. Congress, President Trump, whatever you want to do, we need help. And I actually think it's a good idea. Me and Fitz are going to talk about that today, discuss some of it. Also bring up the fact as far as Nick Saban possibly being the commissioner of college football and why I personally think that's a bad idea. So we'll get into all of that and more. Appreciate you guys being in here. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments section like you always do. And always hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. So first off, Fitz, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. This is an interesting topic because it crosses a lot of different dimensions, from sports to politics to the courts, and but NCAA commissioner is exactly right. The president of the NCAA. The courts have to, or the government has to intervene because the courts won't stop intervening, and not for illegitimate reasons. There are reasons why the courts are doing this, but at this point, it's so out of control that the NCAA can't even conduct business anymore. Things that should be just fine, and now the courts are involved in everything, and it's just distracting and moving the NCAA and around in areas that we don't understand. And I think it's time where, as a libertarian, it pains me to say this, we need the government to get involved.
Yeah. I mean, we do. Look, they had their meeting, and, Charlie Baker, who's the president of the NCAA, I mean, he basically just threw his hands up. He's like, they got to intervene. We don't know what else to do. Now, here's the funny part about that, Fitz. This is the NCAA's doing.
Right.
This is all their fault. For so long, they took advantage of a situation that they didn't have to take advantage of, and then finally, when you got pushed back on, you didn't have a leg to stand on. I go, but that's what this really comes down to. I know, and there's a lot of people out there that put the claims out. Well, the players don't deserve anything but a scholarship. That's about as much of BS as there could possibly be. Because I can tell you right now, a scholarship for 4 years, and let's just say it's $120,000, which most of them aren't, but it's not far off from that. Let's just say that's it. What they bring on a Saturday for a college football game, or whatever you want to call it, 2 or 3 games for a college basketball game, greatly outweighs that scholarship. Greatly outweighs, not to mention the sacrifice in their body, their time, all that stuff. And I get it. They don't have to do that. They don't have to. They're choosing to play football. They're choosing to play basketball. I totally understand that. But don't tell me that it's an equal value, because it's not equal value. It's just not. It never will be. It never was. And so to pretend like it is, you're just being naive just to argue. And that's fine if that's what you want to do.
I don't want to build off that in the fact that those scholarships have value.
Yeah.
It covers the worth to a university of most of your student athletes. But for those student athletes driving revenue, particularly football, no, they deserve a piece of the pie. And where the NCAA always has stumbled is they never listen to the players. They said, we're all about the student athlete, but we're not going to listen to a damn thing they say. And they just powered ahead with what the coaches and administrators wanted time and time again. And this denial of the rights of student athletes to make money off their name, image, and likeness was a loser for the past, I don't know how many years, Big B. When I was in the newspaper business, So we're talking pre-1995. I remember writing a column about a Southern Methodist University athlete being suspended for putting out a T-shirt with himself on it. Literally his own image at the university, and the NCAA thought they owned it. So this has been going on a while, and they got here exactly as you said. They just didn't listen to anyone, and now here we are, and the results have been dramatic. And the only reason they're dramatic is they didn't ease into this like they should have.
Right.
They didn't say, okay, we're going to start compensating. We need to do this. They were so hard line, and they wouldn't cross that line. Then when that line was gone, they had no idea how to handle it. They were so prepared, because now it was like space aliens had landed at the 50-yard line. We don't know how to deal with this because they never prepared themselves in any way.
Right.
You're right. They're getting what they deserve, but it's also creating a whole bunch of chaos. And I think now it's time for the government to intervene to save it from itself, because the NCAA has blundered massively in this entire process.
Absolutely. And I think it started, Fitz, in basketball. Even though football drives everything, I think all of this started in basketball. If you remember back 2013, 2014 season, UConn won the national championship. Shabazz Napier, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Remember, he came out the press conference after they won the title and talked about how the guys were so hungry at night that they couldn't afford to buy food. They couldn't get snacks. They were scrounging money together to buy $8 pizza that 4 of them had to split. That is when the NCAA got embarrassed, because they're like, oh my God, he's going out talking about how these guys don't have any money, and these are the national championship team. Oh, and UConn's a national program. It's not one that just came up on the scene or some. They're supposed to have some money, and these guys don't have any money, and they got embarrassed, and that's when this all started. And then all of a sudden you saw little things start to trickle out. Oh, well, you can give them apples at night. You can give them some crackers. They can go get a fruit basket. When all along, all they had to do was just be doing make sense stuff. And this is where you get smacked right in the face, and you deserve it. This is what happens. Look, the ACC commissioner, came out. He brings up a good point, Fitz, is that he's like, the reason that the government's involved. Now, for people that don't like big government, I don't think really anybody, they may say that, but again, we're not trying to be too political, but the government has to get involved. And the reason that he says, and he's right, is because they can't afford to have lawsuits all over the country.
Right.
So you can't come up with a law that doesn't satisfy, or a law, rule, whatever you want to call it, that doesn't satisfy all 50 states. So if you come up with something and, okay, we agree to this, but then a year and a half down the road, I don't know, Arkansas says, well, hold on a second. This doesn't, go by our bylaws, our guidelines. We're going to sue you. Well, then you're in another lawsuit. Then another 6 months later, Washington State decides the same thing. Hey, we went and started looking at this. So the government has to get involved to put something together that satisfies everybody. For that, I think it just makes sense. It just has to be done. Now, they've got to do it. They've been asking for it forever, Fitz, but at some point they have to do it. And I think, if not now, when? We're at a crossroads here. They got to do something.
Yeah, you're right. Well, as I mentioned, I'm not a big government guy, but this is a core function of what a federal government needs to do: regulate interstate commerce, and making it equitable across all 50 states and territories. This is a core function of the federal government, is getting involved in this. And right now, trying to get Congress to do anything that isn't, profitable or in some way enhances their lives is a little bit difficult, but this has got to be done. And I think enough people in Congress will recognize that this is important to my state, to my people, to my constituents, because a lot of them probably are sports fans too, and they see what's happening. So this is a topic that I think crosses political boundaries. How it's addressed is probably going to get political, but I think there's enough common ground where Congress can do something here, and in the eyes of much of the public, hit a home run. By solving this. We don't want this. We don't want to go back to how it was, but the Wild West eventually needed a marshal. And that's what we're lacking right now. There's no one in charge of this. It's just the courts shooting up the town with chaos. Not saying the courts are wrong. It's just their destruction has been devastating to the very framework of how the NCAA works in every way. Maybe it needs to be redone. Maybe it should have been redone years ago. But now we find ourselves in a position where the NCAA can't redo it because the courts will rule on that. And thus, you got to look to the federal government. And the president has said, let's create a commission on this. And here we go.
I mean, hell, they can't even decide on the House versus the NCAA, the settlement. Everybody's agreed. The judge has gotten in the way 3 different times and said, nope, no, I know you guys agreed, but I don't agree.
Right.
Because I don't agree, you guys got to go back and do it again. I'm like, come on, what are we doing here? At some point, we just got to if they agree, why do you care? Your job is to mediate the situation. It isn't to make it based on your rules. At least I thought that's what a judge's job was to do, is to mediate the situation. Isn't to make rules based on what their belief is. Their job is the mediator. And this whole thing, at least with this case, and it seems like several different cases, it's like the courts are trying to they're not just following necessarily the law, and maybe sometimes they are, but it's like it's a settlement. They agreed. Move on. What else are you wanting? But bringing up that point about President Trump, the problem that I see is, first off, half the country isn't going to like what he's doing.
No.
That's just because it's President Trump. Half the country is going to say, well, whether you like him or you don't, which half the country does, half the country doesn't. Half the country isn't going to agree just because it's him. I think you got to put it past that. You got to get past that part, because if he can put something together and it actually makes sense. Now, again, it's got to make sense. But if it makes sense for everybody involved, do we care who did it? Now, the answer to that to a lot of people is going to be yes, but it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter who comes up with it, as long as it gets done fairly, and it's something that everybody can agree with. I mentioned at the top, Nick Saban possibly being a commissioner. I guess him and President Trump are buddies, whatever the case may be. I think it's a horrible idea to have Nick Saban to be the commissioner of college football. I think it's a horrible, horrible idea because he's got his biases. And he can say that he doesn't, but he does. And that's no fault of his own. I mean, it's where the man coached. But he's going to have his biases. And to me, he's hypocritical about it. And I know I'm being long-winded here, Fitz, but let me get this part out. Is he's hypocritical about it because he's talking about, he said he got out of coaching because he didn't like that the players were constantly asking about how much money they were going to get. And that's all they cared about was money. Now, he says he agrees that players should be getting compensated. But he got out because, that's all they care about. They're not worried about development. All they care about is money, 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 money. Great. Now, I'm not a pocket watcher. I never have been. I never will be. I'm not envious of what anybody else makes. But Nick Saban, at the height of this, when he quit, was making $11 million a year. Now, I think anybody with half a brain cell understands that college athletic departments are not just pocketing all this money that they are making. It's being reinvested into the programs, okay? So they're not getting hundreds of millions of dollars, isn't just sitting in some war chest somewhere. That's not how this thing works at each individual program. The bottom line with that is, if Nick Saban was so worried about players getting paid and he knows that the athletic department doesn't have all this money to just throw out to him, you never really heard Nick Saban say, you know what, guys, I'm making $11 million. Give me $6. Give that $5 million to the guys on the football team. I'm fine. Like, you never heard him say that. Now, he's mad that players want money, but I don't remember him turning down any money. Like, he didn't turn down a raise. I'm not saying that he has to turn down a raise, Fitz. All I'm saying is don't be mad at players when now that they have a little bit of power, that they're expressing their power, because that's what you did when it came extension time. You used the power that you had to get a higher salary. The players are doing the exact same thing. Why are we mad about that? That's why a guy like that can't be the commissioner in my eyes.
A lot to unpack there, but let's back up and understand we're in this position because the NCAA was being incestuous with its management, its views. Well, how do we fix this? Let's ask the coaches. How do we fix this? Let's ask the ADs. How do we fix this? Let's ask the NCAA staff. They never wanted to ask the players.
Nope.
And here we are. So you're going to name Nick Saban, that was part of that, as your commissioner? No, you can't do that.
Mm-mm.
The players won't buy into this unless Nick Saban bears his soul and says, I took money. I was part of the problem. I'm out of the business now, and I recognize that. I don't even know if that would help. But here's the problem. Who would be considered balanced on this issue and have the gravitas to be the commissioner, to actually project the weight and the importance of the commission that it needs to get something through Congress? Nick Saban brings that in loads, but he doesn't bring the first part, which is a truly balanced viewpoint. Look, I understand the needs of a certain group, but I don't feel those needs.
Right.
I haven't experienced those needs. And I can understand it all I want, all I think I need, but I don't really. You got to have lived experience to understand that we couldn't find food at night. We couldn't. I was from the South. I got recruited to the North, and this rule was changed. Some of these kids in the South have never owned a winter jacket.
Yep.
And the school couldn't buy them a damn winter jacket.
Yep.
I mean, having that kind of, being rooted in that kind of thinking should disqualify everyone, because Nick Saban was around during that time. And I didn't hear him screaming. Maybe he did. Maybe before social media put everything out there, Nick Saban was out there saying, we need to be able to buy these kids the clothing and the food and the and the things they need to live from day to day. But I don't remember ever hearing any of that from anyone.
No, I don't either. And the thing about that is, I remember some of those guys when I was at Kansas State. There were guys didn't have a winter coat. I mean, it's 8 degrees outside, 8 inches of snow, and they're running around with just a long sleeve shirt on just to protect them. I'm like, Lord have mercy, this is ridiculous. And again, wasn't Kansas State's fault.
Nope.
Not the athletic department, not the university, not coaches, none of their fault. Because if they'd have given somebody $40 to go buy a jacket, K-State would have been on probation for 3 years. $40 to buy a jacket, 3 years of probation. What are you doing? And so it's that kind of stuff that's why you're right. It can't be Nick Saban. It can't be him again. And I don't want to make this a Nick Saban bashing. I just don't trust him to have the players at heart. And it's got to be somebody that has both sides at heart. For instance, basketball, look, he'll never do it because his time is more valuable doing other things with Jay Billis. Jay Billis had the perfect example. He breaks it down very easily as far as contracts. But Jay Billis isn't going to be the commissioner of college basketball. He doesn't want that job. Number one, it probably doesn't pay as much. And number two, he's going to have to spend way more time doing stuff than he doesn't want to have to do. So, but it doesn't mean he's not right. Doesn't mean he's not right. And because he is. He's right. But as far as college football, I don't know who that would be. You got to have somebody strong that's going to look at it from both sides. And quite frankly, Fitz, what coach, like former coach, current coach, looks at it from both sides right now? I don't know that there really is one that does that looks at it from from both sides and says, okay, we need to do this, this, and this. I don't know that there is one.
I agree. I mean, I'm trying to think of a coach or administrator that's a former player that experienced some of this and might see it from both angles. I mean, I guess a guy, again, we get back to the gravitas. He doesn't have a national name, but, if I'm just pulling him out because I know him. There's other people that fit this. But Eric Harper, the AD at the UNLV's, former football player.
Mm-hmm.
Good football player.
Joel Klatt comes to mind.
Who's that?
Joel Klatt.
Yes. Okay, mind. I'm on board. I'm on board with Joel.
Yep.
I am absolutely on board. He's exactly the guy I was trying to think of and couldn't come up with it. Former player, well-spoken, honest guy, not a flamethrower.
Nope.
Is pretty rational. I'm in. Do I think Nick Saban should be part of this process? 100%.
Sure.
He should be on that commission. Hell, he could be one of the assistant commissioners. There could be him and a truly guy that fits the former player, maybe a little more activist type player as another assistant commissioner. I'm in on that, but you need someone that straddles that fence, that's lived both things and understands both sides. Not Joel Klatt has never been an administrator or a coach, but he's been plugged into that very long time. When you're a broadcaster of his stature, that's who you're dealing with. You're not you're dealing with star players, elite players, but for the most part, you're talking to the coaches, you're talking to the ADs, you're talking to that side of this situation. So he's well-versed in that. And as a player, he probably had a lot of teammates at Colorado back in the day who wanted money for other things, but that's a whole different topic. That's just part of the joy of playing football at Colorado. I'm in. I vote yes. Do I have a vote? Because I just voted. It doesn't matter anymore. We can just vote.
I mean, that's the whole thing, is that there's got to be, at some point, they got to have, and I know the ACC commissioner kind of talked about and threw out there that they're, and that's what all the Power Four commissioners, they're and ADs, they talked about, that they're going to get a committee. I mean, I guess technically the NCAA is this, but they don't trust the NCAA anymore. So they're coming up with another organization to put forth all the rules. And when the new contract comes up, like we've talked about this before, that happens. That'll be the end of the NCAA. It is what it is at that point. Having said all of that, they've done it to themselves. This is where we are. I still am not going to go down the road of it's ruined college basketball. It's ruined college football. I'm still not going to go down that road, just for the simple fact I still watch, you still watch, fans still watch. They still keep showing up. A true way, and people say, well, it'll wane over time. Well, when? The numbers keep going up. Like, you can't say it's going to wane over time when we are literally in the mess and the numbers keep going up. So at what point? Because the thing that I can tell you is, while there might be, because let's just put it out there, most of the people that object to players getting paid are older. It's an older demographic.
Absolutely.
The younger demographic, I haven't heard any younger demographic being upset about guys getting paid. And I've talked to a lot of them, guys my age, and especially played with me. They all agree. Every one of them agree. Should have been getting something. Okay, great. Well, this might be a harsh thing to say, but as the older demographic dies off, if it's the newer and the younger generation, they don't care. They're going to keep watching. They're going to keep showing up. So those numbers aren't going to wane. No. And television contracts keep getting higher. And they're not giving away money because nobody's watching. That's the whole thing that we have to think about. This is like, just whatever, ESPN, CBS, NBC, they're not giving these contracts away because advertising dollars are scarce. It's because they're through the roof. That's why they're doing it, because people are watching. They're watching, and they're watching in record numbers. So it's not going to go down, Fitz. It's not going to go down anytime soon. You just have to have a resolution to this thing. But that's why I'm never going to go down the road of it's ruining college football. I'm like, it's not. It's a mess, and it has to be changed. But if you really want to make a change or you think it's ruining, then stop going. Stop watching. If you do that for a fall, there'll be some real changes. But nobody's going to do that. Nobody. It's just like the NFL team. Oh, you want the general manager to get fired? Well, stop going to the games. Never going to happen. People are going to go. They're going to watch. It is what it is. So
most people, and you live this experience because you live with your career now in both the college environment and the pro environment, that there's a lot of crossover fans, but there's a lot of people who just watch the NFL and don't watch college. Look at the ratings. The ratings bear that out. They have much higher ratings. I think a strange effect here that all of us who are involved in the college side of this endeavor aren't realizing, this has been a disruption. This has been a breaking of norms. It's shattered the old model, which is intrusive to all of us who have aged. I've always wanted to be a person that never says, well, this is the way we've always done it, because that could have been blatantly wrong. And you're doing it wrong out of habit now, not out of right and wrong. But I think as we see college athletics begin to mimic some of the professional things, and players like Shedeur Sanders are perfect examples of this. What a lightning rod he became for this bridge between college and pro. He was really well paid. I think we're attracting some NFL viewers into the college game because the ratings are going up. At the same time, I'm hearing people from my demographic and older saying, I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. I don't even know who the players are.
Right.
So I think besides refining the game, it's refining the fan base a little bit. And that, I don't know if it's particularly good, but you're right. The great thing about the criticisms of old men is the criticisms don't last forever because they die. And we've seen that pass through time.
Right.
This generation believed in this, they're gone, and that's gone too.
Right.
I'm not going to go down the path of what I'm thinking of, but you probably do. And it's, for the most part, the world's moved on now that generation's past us. But in other ways, the World War II generation was absolutely amazing in what they were willing to do. And maybe we're not the same now. But there is an evolution to society, and college football is a part of that society.
Mm-hmm.
Now the evolution has gone uncontrolled, and that's all we want. We want some form of control so that this isn't so chaotic.
Correct.
This isn't like, this is how we're doing business this week, until that judge in New Hampshire that has really no authority over the nation rules and destroys all of college athletics because the University of New Hampshire wants to be able to do this.
Correct.
So now, because the University of New Hampshire wants this, this is a hypothetical. I don't know that University of New Hampshire wants anything. Maybe the Blue Hens. Is that the Blue Hens? No, that's Delaware. Damn it, screwed that up. Just any state can now intervene and disrupt everything. And this is going to be political in a way, but I don't think judges rule on the law anymore. As you said earlier, they're ruling on how they feel like the world should be.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I feel like this judge in California is doing sometimes. I know you guys, as the plaintiffs and the whatevers, have agreed on this, but I don't agree, and I'm the judge.
Yep.
Judge, in this case, you should be arbitrating here, not
exactly
deciding. Yeah, I think she's been too activist for me. Anytime you say I'm an expert in this area, well, you've just self-proclaimed that. Correct. And you're grabbing cases not because you have this deep interest in it, but because you want to inflict your opinions and thoughts on this. And she's been polarizing. She's been more polarizing in some ways than the NCAA itself in how she's handled this. Help us, big government. We need you. You're our only hope.
Ooh. I said this before, Fitz, last year, and I say it again. The only thing that I could think that maybe this is the NCAA trying to make a big comeback. And when I say that is because they fought it for so long, and then they got overrun with their stubbornness. they probably had the ability to do some things and put some things in place when they had the chance, and then they didn't. And then they said, you know what? We're just going to let you run amok, and we're going to let you make a mess of this yourself. And then you're eventually, because we'll get the backing of the government on our side, and then eventually you'll come back to us and say, and we'll be the savior. It's like, hey, we got the government to get involved. We got Congress to get involved. So now we can garner back some power. I still am not putting that out of the realm of what the NCAA could possibly be doing. I fully believe that. I think that they're like, okay, well, fine. If you want to do it your way, see what happens. And they knew what would happen, and it happened. And now if they can be the ones to get Congress to the table, then they can start garnering some power, because Congress will put in safeguards, and the NCAA won't go away. They'll be back in charge, but it's going to have to be a give and take. It's going to have to be a give and take, and they're going to have to start listening to players. They're going to have to start listening. They have a seat at the table. And look, there's two people that always get left out of everything, the players and the fans. You know, they are always the ones that get left out of this kind of stuff. It's because without the players, there is no game. Without the fans, there is no money. But they don't get to make the decisions. Well, now at least the players are getting to make some of these decisions, and I think it's a long time coming, Fitz. Long time coming, man.
And honestly, you bring up a good point. Step one of this whole process is, what do we do with the NCAA?
Mm-hmm.
Do we tear it down and build something entirely different and new? That's a process, probably what needs to be done. Or do we just go in there and try to reform the existing structure of the NCAA so that business as usual can keep going, but maybe not all the problems get solved, because we're still going to have this ingrained bias towards the universities and the coaches. I don't see how the NCAA can survive in any way by the same hiring practices it's had. It becomes very incestuous with, we're going to hire from the athletic administration side. This guy's a former AD. Well, where does he stand? Of course he stands in favor of the athletic department. So I don't know how the NCAA in its current format can survive this. That it should. Not just that it can't, it shouldn't. Unless major reforms, unless entire upper management resigns and says, I'm out as soon as new replacements are brought in, we're not going anywhere with this, Big B.
Right.
The NCAA's got to be majorly reformed or destroyed. And then we walk right into the big topic, which we're not going to discuss today because that will make this a 3-hour podcast, which is Division I, most notably the power conferences, most notably maybe just the Big Ten and SEC, saying, you're right, NCAA's a mess, we're out. We're going to do our own thing. The Division II, Division III, and even what is, now the FCS, which is part of Division I, you're on your own. You can have the NCAA. We're leaving to do our own thing. That would be really bad for college athletics, but I think we're getting really close to it.
It would be brutal. But a topic that we're going to tackle at a later date. Absolutely. Yep. So appreciate everybody being in here. Thank you guys again. As always, remember to like, follow, subscribe. Our summer schedule is going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're going to have these podcasts during our summer schedule until football gets rolling around. So be patient with us. Keep showing up. We'll keep putting these things out. Until then, thank you guys, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.